So today we are looking at the Douglas A4 Skyhawk. This particular model is an A4K operated by the New Zealand Air Force. So the Douglas Skyhawk was originally introduced in the mid-1950s by the USA as a lightweight, carrier-capable light attack aircraft. And the New Zealand Air Force operated a little over 20 of them between 1970 and 2001. This particular model, NZ6209, was one of the original delivered to the New Zealand Air Force in 1970. And just looking at it right now, you can see it has a peculiar nose-high attitude. This was because back in the 1950s, when these aircraft were first introduced, the carriers had a different mechanism in launching as to what they have today, And in order for the aircraft to be able to not only have the correct or close to the correct angle of attack needed to get airborne, but also to clear any mechanisms in their way from launch, they had to have the nose at a higher attitude. Similar aircraft from the time, such as the carrier version of the F4 Phantom II, had a built-in mechanism that would raise and lower the nose wheel as needed, whereas the Skyhawk, with a lightweight design in mind, decided to just have a longer nose wheel leg. And keeping in mind with its lightweight maneuverability, the Skyhawks had a wingspan short enough that they didn't need to be folded in order for them to fit within the aircraft carrier, much like you see with any other aircraft carrier aircraft. Also keeping in mind with the lightweightness, if we just come over here, you see here, this panel sticking out from the wing is the leading edge slat, which is a lift device needed for when the aircraft is at lower speeds. There is no mechanism that retracts or lowers this aircraft, this leading edge slat. Instead, it is operated by the wind. If I just give it a little push here, there you go, you see. So as the aircraft picks up speed, that will retract into the wing. And then as the aircraft then slows down as necessary, this will then fold out to this fully extended point. This also has one very, very good use. Say if the aircraft was in a very tight and steep bank, your inside wing would be traveling slower than your outside wing, and in doing so would have a reduce in speed and a reduce in lift. If the pilot was not careful, that would then lead to an aerodynamic stall, cause the aircraft to spin, and if not corrected, eventually a crash. And so with this mechanism extending effectively automatically, without any input from the pilot, that would increase the lift as the speed reduced over the wing, effectively helping the pilot in reducing the number of tasks they would need to do. Going back on the aircraft's short wingspan, that gave it the ability to have a roll rate of upwards of 720 degrees per second, which is 2 full revolutions per second, which is enough to cause the pilot to black out, and ultimately the aircraft would eventually rip itself apart. And so they limited the pilots to do only 360 degrees per second, which is 1 revolution per second. If we come over here now, just under the wing here, you'll see this pod here. This was a pod for rockets. I would believe they are unguided. If you can find details on that, let me know in the comments, I wouldn't mind. And what's interesting of note is the middle section here is metal, and the rear and front parts are cardboard. That was because when the first rocket was fired out, the rocket engine would shoot off the cardboard piece at the back, and as the rocket then flew forward, it would then take this piece with it, and aerodynamics would rip the rest of it off. How many rockets this pod would carry? Again, I'm not 100% sure. I would imagine somewhere in the realm of 12. If anyone in the comments knows, feel free to let me know. Now this here is one of 2 external fuel tanks, hollow, nothing in there, so it can carry the fuel. How much fuel, again, exactly, I'm not 100% sure. Again, and if someone in the comments knows, please do let me know, and you can see the other one on the other side there. And in the middle there is a bomb. I'm not 100% certain on the size, and its explosive mass, but it's a bomb nevertheless. And this here is a guidance system for a bomb. It would sit on the nose of the bomb, and the reticle is underneath that cover just there, and it would help guide the bomb using these fins here. They would move as necessary to guide the bomb towards whatever target was selected by the pilot. You can also see here is 3 of the unguided rockets. And if I remember correctly, the A4 Skyhawks were nuclear capable, albeit very small nuclear weaponry. Again, if anyone knows any different, please feel free to let me know in the comments below. And this here is one of 2 gun ports, or rather cannon ports. The Skyhawks were equipped with 2 20mm cannons, which extended, if memory serves me correctly, I say that as if I've worked on these things. If memories of pictures serve me correctly, they extended to about here, give or take. And I'll go around to the other side and I'll show you, we do have a casket of 20mm rounds, but I'm not finished on this side just yet. And so, as I mentioned earlier, the New Zealand Air Force had around a little over 20 of these operated from 1970 through to 2001. And in the early mid-1980s, the New Zealand Air Force, went about and did a project that they dubbed Project Kahu, which was not only to extend the life of these aircraft, but to upgrade the avionics of the aircraft, effectively modernizing them. So as mentioned, I came around the other side. Here's those 3 rockets again. There's some more, another much larger rocket and another pod, and here is what I was talking about, the 20mm rounds. So just to give you an idea of what was coming out of those cannons, here is a small rack of those rounds. What is interesting of note, as a member of the New Zealand Warbirds Association, I meet up, with other members, and we all exchange stories and information. I've been told that the A4 Skyhawks had the ability to buddy refuel, which is when in the middle there where the bomb is, an external fuel tank would sit with a basket and pipe system that would, could be plugged in by another aircraft and have mid-air refueling. The New Zealand Air Force took that and decided to create an aerobatics team where they would take that buddy refueling and then do aerobatics whilst mid-air refueling. I've been told by many other members that the New Zealand Air Force was the first to do that. If you think or feel otherwise, or would like to confirm, again, feel free to let me know in the comments. Now, something I did forget to mention about the external fuel tanks on each wing is nowadays you are highly unlikely to see a Skyhawk flying without the external wing-mounted tanks, purely as a safety measure, not only any additional fuel as needed, but in case the landing gear were to fail, the pilot can then land the aircraft on the external fuel tanks, in doing so protecting the aircraft from any damage that might occur to it. An interesting fact about this particular Skyhawk 6209 is that in 1984 it completed one of the longest navigation exercises around New Zealand in order to test the 3 drop tanks, external fuel tanks, for long-range operations and overseas deployments. And now I don't know exactly which Skyhawk it was. Could have been this one, it might have been another one. Sometime in their lifetime between 1970 and 2001, I don't remember the exact date. People who were around then will probably be able to remember it. This is long before my time. A Taiwanese fishing trawler was illegally fishing in New Zealand waters, and they effectively ignored all the warnings to stop by the Navy and Coast Guard. And so they turned to the Air Force and said, hey, whoops, I just hit my microphone, I'm so sorry if that made a noise. They turned to the Air Force and said, hey, can you guys give us a hand? And they said, yeah, sure, we'll send out a couple of our Skyhawks. And they went out and did some high-speed, low flybys of the Taiwanese fishing trawler. Excuse me, and in order for them to show off the weaponry and effectively threaten them with the aircraft and weaponry. But they were ignored, and so the one Skyhawk decided to, with its 20mm cannons, to fire warning shots ahead of the boat. That got message across, the boat turned around and left the scene. One thing, again, I forgot to mention about the Skyhawk, because it's lightweight and effectively incredible maneuverability for the time and decent power to weight ratio, it was given many nicknames, all effectively regarding it as some form of a hot rod. And by looking at it, I can agree with that. Well, that's all we have time for today. If you have any knowledge that I have forgotten to mention about these aircraft, or particularly the New Zealand Air Force's Skyhawks, please feel free to let me know in the comments. Otherwise, stay tuned. Feel free to like and subscribe if you want. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.